Robots will be racing humans at an upcoming marathon in China. A politician in Mississippi files the Contraception Begins at Erection Act. And the Pennsylvania Flood Museum is closed due to flooding. These are the weird stories on Weird AF News, the only daily weird news podcast. I got 3 kinky weird news stories for you today. Let's get right into it. China announces the first ever marathon race between humans and the robots. That's right, China is preparing to host the world's first half marathon where actual human runners will go head-to-head with humanoid robot marathon runners. So basically a bunch of humans racing some Terminators. I think we know how this is going to end. This race is scheduled for April if you guys want to get some tickets to it or participate. The race will see 12,000 human participants and bipedal robots from over 20 different companies compete across a 13-mile course in Beijing's Economic Technological Development Area, also known as E-Town. Well, I've never heard of E-Town. Have you guys heard of E-Town, the Economic Technological Development Area? Sounds exciting. A lot of nerds been hanging out in E-Town is my hunch. We have a quote here from one of the E-Town officials. What do you Can you imagine the level of nerddom if you're the E-Town official? This guy says, competing robots must have a humanoid appearance and mechanical structure capable of bipedal walking or running movements. The official also explained that wheels are prohibited from the robotic racers. Yeah, good. You can't have them with wheels. It's not really running, is it, if you got wheels? The eligible robots must range from 1.5 to 6.5 feet in height. It says this futuristic marathon race marks the very first official competition where robots and human beings go head-to-head. And, this isn't really very fair because robots during a marathon never have to stop to take a poop. So right there, they got an edge. Are they going to check these robots for performance-enhancing software before the race? I'd like to know that. I got a lot of questions, in other words. It says here, in a trial run last fall, Tiangong, a bipedal robot named after China's Heavenly Place space station, participated in the Beijing Yizhuang half marathon. I think I got it. Though the robot Tiangong only covered 100 meters of the race, the robot did receive a medal for completing the event. Oh, participation medals they're giving to robots as well? I guess that's so they don't cry. In addition, a robot quadruped named Raybo 2 also made headlines by running an entire marathon in South Korea, completing the grueling 26.2-mile race in just over 4 hours. This is a quadruped, though. If you got 4 legs, you kind of have an advantage. I'm wondering, did they mention this marathon's going to have a 2-leg limit? Oh, yeah, it did say bipedal. It's got to be bipedal, so that's 2 legs. I know my Latin, guys. Oh, yes, they are saying that Raybo 2, the quadruped, is ineligible for this race due to its non-bipedal design. Instead, Tiangong is gearing up for a full-fledged run at this upcoming event with an anticipated speed of up to 6.2 miles per hour. Full-fledged run at another, I guess they mean another upcoming event, because they can't participate in that one. Can't have 4-legged robots running against 2-legged human beings, and you can't have wheels involved, no flying, and no lasers. I say no lasers because you can imagine they could take out some humans with the lasers. We all saw the Terminator. We know how this is going to end. The upcoming human-robot event is part of China's broader push to spotlight their advancements in robotics and artificial intelligence. E-Town's marathon is just the beginning, they say. In August, Beijing will host an all-robot sporting extravaganza featuring not only races but also football and other competitive showcases of robotic sportsman-like skill. Why stop there, man? Just have the Robo-Olympics. I'd love to see that. Wouldn't you watch Robo-Olympics? I'm kind of bored of the human Olympics at this point. Let's see some robots. And also allow them to fight to the death. That would be very entertaining, I think. This article I have here gives some information about Beijing's E-Town, which I'm very curious about. It's a well-known robotics hub, houses over 140 companies that collectively generate nearly 10 billion yuan in output. That's $1.37 billion. That's only half of Beijing's total robotics production. The area has cultivated a comprehensive robotics industry ecosystem spanning core components, complete machines, and advanced applications. All right, guys, so I've just pinpointed what will eventually be the epicenter of the robot apocalypse. It's going to take place in E-Town, obviously. So we need to keep an eye on this place, I think. They're doing all the robotic stuff, making the most robots. So we need some surveillance over there in E-Town. We have another quote from E-Town officials who say, moving forward, Beijing's E-Town will focus on advancing cutting-edge embodied artificial intelligence technologies, industrializing high-end humanoid products, and fostering a top-tier innovation ecosystem for robot technology that will eventually kill all the humans. Excuse me, I didn't mean to say that last part. A politician in Mississippi files the Contraception Begins at Erection Act. A state senator in Mississippi has filed a bill it's called Contraception Begins at Erection Act. It was written by Democratic Senator Bradford Blackman. The bill would make it, quote, unlawful for a person to discharge genetic material without the intent to fertilize an embryo. Oh my goodness, this is very alarming for those of us who don't regularly fertilize embryos with our discharge. I'm guilty this morning, actually, of breaking this law. There are some fines involved, it says. The third strike resulting in the loss of $10,000 from the perpetrator. Oh my goodness, that's a very stiff penalty, don't you think? In a statement to the media, Senator Blackman wrote, all across the country, especially here in Mississippi, the vast majority of bills relating to contraception and or abortion focus on the woman's role when, men are 50% of the equation, don't you know? Yeah, this bill is obviously a satire, right? He's trying to bring attention to the ridiculous proposals that have been put forth. He's obviously specifically highlighting the unfairness that the majority of lawmakers focus on things that the woman needs to do rather than the man. So he's proposing this. It's a joke, in other words. It's very Monty Python-esque. You guys know the song, right? Sing it with me. Every sperm is sacred. Every sperm is great. If a sperm is wasted, God gets quite irate. Blackman goes on to say, quote, this bill that I've proposed highlights the fact and brings the man's role into the conversation. People can get up in arms and call it absurd, but I can't say that bothers me one bit. I'm getting my message across. Wow, I mean, American politics, huh? It's just a big old circus act. What's nice is we get a free ticket. We get a front row seat to all the shenanigans. Of course, I enjoy the trolling that occasionally goes on between lawmakers, this being an instance like that. I mean, it's good for me doing a Weird AF News podcast, It's helpful. The scary thing is that, you can imagine this law in certain places could pass. If you could somehow find support for this in the Bible, sadly, people in positions of power would go for it. And now, from my research online, I'm not happy to report that this joke really went over the heads of way too many people in my country. So, we're not very bright, so it was the satire was lost on many, sadly, especially in the state of Mississippi, as you can imagine. In order to get your point across there, you got to go even further and have a law against erections. Life begins at arousal. Or in Mississippi, I guess life begins when your first cousin's had her third glass of wine.
Every day, thousands of Comcast engineers and technologists, like Kunle, put people at the heart of everything they create.
In the average household, there are dozens of connected devices. Here in the Comcast family, we're building an integrated in-home Wi-Fi solution for millions of families like my own. It brings people together in meaningful ways.
Kunle and his team are building a Wi-Fi experience that connects 1 billion devices every year. Learn more about how Comcast is redefining the future of connectivity at comcastcorporation.com/Wi-Fi.
The Pennsylvania Flood Museum is closed due to flooding. Talk about irony. A museum dedicated to commemorating the victims of a 19th century flood has temporarily had to close because of flooding. Well, I mean, you probably didn't have to close it. You could just market this as a, opening of a new exhibit. Fully interactive, fully immersive. It's so realistic that a family of 4 drowned yesterday. Come to our new exhibit at the Flooding Museum. It's an actual flood. This is hilarious. And, and it brings up questions such as, if you're a flood museum documenting flooding, it's your specialty, you're familiar with floods, why would you open in a spot prone to flooding? Let's keep reading and find out. So the museum was temporarily closed because of flooding that was caused on the inside of the facility by a water leak stemming from recent extremely cold weather, according to officials. Oh, okay, so it's not in a flood zone exactly. It was caused by flooding inside the museum. Fortunately for its patrons, the Johnstown Flood Museum said on its social media accounts, nothing of historic significance was affected by the interior flooding. Oh, great, good. So I guess it didn't ruin all of those paintings of floods. I don't know what would be inside a flood museum. I'd imagine a lot of plumbing equipment. I'm assuming photos of the previous flooding that devastated the town in the 19th century. So I guess the pictures are okay. Maybe there was like some remnants of discarded pieces of furniture that people clung to during the flood. Maybe like a door that they clung to, like in the movie Titanic. What do you put in a flood museum? I have no idea. I'd love to know. I'd love to go to a flood museum. I do like weird museums. This sounds like one of them. Anybody been to the flood museum? Anybody live over there? I could come and borrow your kayak and visit the flood museum. Stay at your house and record a podcast in your closet. Okay, back to the story here. We have a statement from the Flood Museum. Quote, "We hope to have a timeline for reopening the Flood Museum. In the meantime, we appreciate your patience as we work to remediate and repair our beloved museum." Is it me or, anyone else think that this museum is really screwing up an opportunistic moment to really get people in there? I mean, this is the best time to visit the museum. You give, they enter the museum instead of a ticket, you give them a paddle. Just, maybe they could join forces with the Ark Museum. There's like a Noah's Ark Museum somewhere, which is equally ridiculous. In this particular article, they are giving praise to a volunteer at the museum named Nikki, who was working in the archives when she actually discovered the leak. Museum officials informed the news that Nikki sounded the alarm and allowed us to get in here and keep it from being much, much worse of a flood. So big shout out to Nikki. I like to imagine Nikki had to yell, "Flood, guys, flood," like a few times before somebody believed her. Oh, good one, Nikki. She's yelling out that there's a flood in the Flood Museum. No, guys, it's an actual flood. I'm drowning. Send help. According to the museum officials, a valve failure on the building's 3rd floor is what caused all the flooding. The water poured through the walls, oh no, resulting in damage to the carpets, drywall, and ceiling tiles. The Flood Museum commemorates the Great Johnstown Flood that occurred May 31st, 1889, when, after days of heavy rainfall, the South Fork Dam ruptured, gave way, and released 20 million tons of water to the surrounding areas. The catastrophe was very serious. It claimed the lives of 2,209 people, including 100 entire families, 400 children, and destroyed 1,600 homes. Bodies, in fact, were found as far away as Cincinnati, Ohio, and were found as late as 1911, according to the museum's website. In the years that followed, Johnstown experienced additional significant floods in 1936 and 1977. This is kind of like Floodtown, USA over here. I'd imagine after all these floods, every home has like several life jackets hanging on the walls. Anyone live here can corroborate this theory of mine? What's the heightened cost of flood insurance in this town? Or is it one of those situations where the insurance companies won't even sell it like they're doing in the coastlines of Florida? Floods are scary, man. Giant floods, they're driving me mad. They're making me crazy, crazy. Giant floods, they're driving me mad. You finish it. Well, hello, everybody, my loyal listeners, friends of the show. Appreciate you spending some time with me. If you haven't subscribed yet, please consider doing so. Weird AF News, just FYI, is a 5-day-a-week news podcast. Monday through Thursday, I do weird news from all over the world, and on Friday, I only do weird news from the state of Florida because it is ultra weird. If you'd like to call into the show, the number is 646-450-2012. The email is funnyjones@gmail.com. And if you'd like to support the show, as always, go to weirdafnews.com, the official website, where you can join the Patreon or buy a coffee for your handy-dandy host. All right, keeping it brief today. Love you. Goodbye.